Put aside for the moment the question of the way the government is using tax legislation.
It being 3 p.m, the debate is interrupted in accordance with Standing Order 101A. The debate may be resumed at a later hour. The member for Tangney will have leave to continue speaking when the debate is resumed. Questions without notice. Are there any questions? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister aware that the Managing Director of the Commonwealth Bank has said that variable interest rates will rise across the board because of new taxes and charges on banks introduced in the federal budget, and that the banking industry estimates the increases will cost about $200 a year on a typical home loan? Given the Prime Minister's record of attacking homeowners with high interest rates, why is the government now attacking home buyers with deceitful tax rises and forcing up variable interest rates even further?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Any bank managing director would say that, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they? Now, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
Order.
I mean.
Those on my left, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition knows about the massive level of profitability in the Australian banking industry. He also knows the amount of resentment on the part of borrowers at those profitability figures. He also knows the resentment on the part of people with savings and trading bank accounts. Their resentment at the charges.
I warn the member for Mitchell.
The resentment at the charges which they are needing to bear, and he knows of the virtually monopoly position those four banks have in the banking system by virtue of the bank licence extended to them by the Commonwealth. Now, Mr. Speaker, what we've said in this budget is there is a need to tighten fiscal policy. But again, we've got to be careful where the load falls. And I think in this case, given the enormous shift in the profitability of banks, it's entirely appropriate that some of the load should fall on the profits of the banks. This doesn't need at all to reflect itself in any change in mortgage rates. To do so would be only to maintain those profits at these extraordinarily high levels. And to maintain those profits at those extraordinary high levels would simply mean that the banks are taking the best from the recovery and putting very little back. Now, Mr. Speaker, can I also say, the Leader of the Opposition should also be aware that a number of banks have reduced their fixed interest mortgage rates in the last 2 weeks. The National Australia Bank is one, Westpac is another, and we've seen the bond markets, Mr. Speaker, reduce the long-term bond rate by around a percentage point now in the last week, with a further fall yesterday. And the reason for that, Mr. Speaker, is that the financing task of the Commonwealth Government, for this year will fall from $21 billion last year to $6.2 billion this year. In other words, Mr. Speaker, there will be a turnaround of around $14.8 billion in the Commonwealth gross borrowings, the largest single-year reduction in the budget financing task on record. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, given the fact that demand for Commonwealth bonds is going to fall so sharply from $21 billion, or a $14.8 billion reduction, is going to fall so sharply, the price, if there are fewer bonds around, the price of the bonds rise, therefore the interest yield drops. And that's what's happened in the last week. That's why the long-term bond yield has come down by a percentage point in the last week. And, Mr. Speaker, that is the big indicator of interest rates in the economy. That's the purely market-set indicator of interest rates. Now, Mr. Speaker, and what it also means with those lower interest rates and the Treasury's forecast of growth over the next 3 years, it gives the complete lie to the claim of the Leader of the Opposition that there was 5 minutes of sunshine. We know at least now there's going to be 6 years of sunshine, at least 6 years of sunshine. Well, it was like a lot of distortions and lies. When they're put in the wrong place, they need to be put back in the right place. Now, Mr. Speaker, Although the opposition's had a rotten couple of days, Mr. Speaker, first of all, he got a budget back in surplus. He got the best unemployment figures today in 4 years. It'll break his heart, Mr. Speaker. When there's good news around for him, Mr. Speaker, life's hardly worth living. And the old Chicken Little and Henny Penny routine is about to be booed off stage. And on top of that, Mr. Speaker, last week he let the GST genie from the bottle. But above all that, Mr. Speaker, all the mantras,
Order, those on my left.
The sage-like Conservative mantra of saving, be good, be diligent, save, all that stuff. Savings, the family and the deficit. Who has delivered the largest savings change in his parliamentary history? The government. Exactly. The government. Who's delivered more support and again further support in this budget to families? The government. And who's had the biggest turnaround in the deficit in his parliamentary lifetime? The government. All the mantras he believed in, all the things, Mr. Speaker, he didn't do, delivered by the government. Is any wonder, Mr. Speaker, he's had a crook couple of days?
The honourable member for Banks.
Mr. Speaker, my question is directed to the Minister for Employment, Education and Training. Can the Minister inform the House of the data released today on the Australian labour force? What implications does this data have for the government's working nation objectives?
If the honourable member for Sturt wants to hear the question, he'll remain silent. The Minister for Employment, Education and Training.
Mr. Speaker, in a word, the figures that came out today in terms of the labour force are fantastic news. And they're fantastic by any measure that you want to put to them. Not only do they confirm, Mr. Speaker, that the government's policies are working, but what has been produced over the last month is another 90,000 jobs, 80,000 of them full-time, a 5% growth in employment over the last 12 months, an unemployment rate now down to 8.3%, the long-term unemployed numbers coming down even further, a labour force which is expanding. The participation rate has gone up by 0.4%, which shows that the supply-side measures, in particular those associated with getting the long-term unemployed back into the workforce, Mr. Speaker, are working extremely well indeed. What we've done in this recovery is to open the employment growth up for everyone. We've said that we wouldn't leave the long-term unemployed behind, and they're not being left behind. Across the country, Mr. Speaker, the news is replicated all around the place. For the first time in more than 4 years, the unemployment rate has fallen below 10%, which means that South Australia and Tasmania are importantly picking up advantage in employment terms from this recovery. And from the trend statistics, if one wants to say these are just another aberration, another month, on top of the past 23 months, Mr. Speaker, that they've been making the same call, the trend figure shows a continuing decline in the unemployment rate. Now, what does the opposition say about this? Every month we've seen a press release put out by the Shadow Minister. In fact, if we go back over the months, he said on the 27th of May last year that he looked forward to holding me personally accountable for the contribution to the unemployment tragedy. Well, hold me accountable. In June, he said, government's job target looks shaky. In July, he said, unemployment up. In November, full-time employment weakens. On the 9th of February this year, unemployment up, fewer full-time jobs in January. And on the 6th of April, he picked up the Leader of the Opposition's line about the little sunlight for job seekers. The little sunlight. Well, I tell you what, in the last two years, there have been 640,000 beams of sunlight for the people who have been beneficiaries of this jobs growth. It is nonsense to talk about 5 minutes of economic sunlight when this government has been producing employment growth that you said could never happen and which your projections said we would never achieve. But with all of those press releases over the past 12 months, did we get one today from the Shadow Minister? No. No press release. The news is too good.
Order.
He can't even bring himself
Order,
to
don't
welcome...
tempt him. Order.
He can't even bring himself, Mr Speaker, to welcome that news. Well, I guess what we'll get from them, I see him anxious. I hope he gets up and asks me a question. But what we see is that what we'll probably see from him, said Mr Speaker, is that this can't last. This can't last. I mean, they've been saying it for more than 12 months. This can't last. The problem for them is it is. It is lasting the employment growth. Our commitment to getting to 5% unemployment and these contributions to it, Mr Speaker, does demonstrate that the government's policies are working and will continue to work. The point I made yesterday in response to his question when he asked how could we still forecast that we'd get to our target, these figures confirm it. You might like to predict all you like and base them on projections and forecasts. We'll stand on the results, and the results today are truly significant.
Order. Order. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, my question is addressed to the Prime Minister, and I preface my question by reminding the Prime Minister that he has increased taxation on small businesses, he has increased their interest rates, he has been responsible for a record number of small business bankruptcies, and he and the Minister for Industrial Relations have burdened them with an arthritic industrial relations system. But I ask him, I therefore ask the Prime Minister—
Those are my rights.
—which has been attacked even by your mate Bob Carr. Mr Speaker, I ask the Prime Minister—
Those are my rights.
I ask the Prime Minister, how do you really justify your ivory tower claim today made on Brisbane radio when you said, and I quote, "So if they're feeling the pinch, they ought to say small business is not for me." But it even gets better. It gets better. Because it's never going to get any better. I mean, this is as good as it ever gets. End of quote. I ask the Prime Minister what earthly hope has mainstream Australia really got when its Prime Minister thinks now is as good as it's ever going to get?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the context of that remark was when the economy is growing at around 6%. 6%.
Order.
When the economy is growing at around 5 to 6%, as it was in the last 12 months, and at 2% inflation, it's about as good as it ever gets. That's right. I mean, I've been here for nearly 30 years. I can't remember it in my time here. He can't remember it. He's asked the question. He can't remember it. You've got to go back, Mr Speaker, even back in the 1960s, I don't think there was any conjunction of circumstances where we had 5 to 6% growth and 2% inflation. And, Mr Speaker, what needs, I think, to be understood in this country is that there's about 800,000 to 900,000 people in the small business sector, but at the margin of that you've got people moving in and out of employment into business, into single businesses or unincorporated businesses. And that's a corporate business. That's a corporate business. That's a corporate business. Mr Speaker, that flow of people in and out of those businesses take place at a time when we've seen the most, at the margin of the economy, the most propitious time for people to make that shift. Now, if people think that they can't make it work in that environment, the prospect is they're going to be going back to that part of the labour market from whence they're from. But for businesses where there is real potential and growth, the government has done these things for small business in the budget. Firstly, it's taken the pressure off interest rates. It's taken the pressure off interest rates, which matters perhaps most.
Order.
Most small businesses are not incorporated, so therefore their tax rates have not been touched. The other thing, Mr Speaker, is that the government, as you will have read, is about to negotiate another accord with the ACTU, which guarantees, again, wage restraint through the period. So the thing that matters most to small business, wages and interest rates and demand, These are the things which the government budget provides: ongoing growth, sustainable low inflationary growth, and of course, a wage accord which underpins sensible outcomes. Now, as well as that, Mr Speaker, we have also extended to the self-employed the opportunity to take the means-tested matched government contribution to superannuation. As well as that, we've extended the highly successful Export Access program, specifically targeted at small business, to June 1995 at a cost of $14.4 million. And can I just say, Mr Speaker, the Export Access program, a lot of the growth in exports has come from the smaller business sector, and supporting them in market development and export market development and access is important to them, and that's why we've extended the scheme by $14.4 million. We've simplified visa arrangements for business travellers and for migrants. Mr Speaker, we've increased expenditure on Aus Industry, the Aus Industry programs, the extension programs of around $20 million and 95.6, building on the Working Nation initiative. So, Mr Speaker, when you look at the prospects in a growth economy, which have been there now for 3 years and growing for another 3 on the Treasury's estimates, there's a great opportunity here for small business. And when it gets to these sorts of numbers, growth in the sort of 4 to 6% area with low inflation, Mr Speaker, it never gets any better. And I've been here 30 years and I've never seen it.
The honourable member for Port Adelaide.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister inform the House what the changes announced in the budget will mean for all Australians in their retirement?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the change
Order.
Mr Speaker, when every member of this House has left it and been replaced by somebody else, the thing in Tuesday night's budget that will be there supporting the country is the changes to superannuation. Mr Speaker, the government's always believed that the superannuation arrangements were the best opportunity we had to give working Australians a higher standard of living in retirement. And the other important feature of this, Mr Speaker, you know that the demographics of the country are changing. That when the baby boom generation, which you and I belong to, reach retirement age, there'll be half as many, again, retired people as there are today, and about 5 or 8 years after that there'll be nearly twice as many people in retirement age as there are today. This will put inordinate weight on fiscal policy and the pension scheme as it exists today. So pensioners who are interested to keep the 25% of average weekly earning standards achieved under Labor will find a lot of pressure against that without private provision and complementation to the pension. Mr Speaker, the government understood that 10 years ago, and with the ACTU we put together the first superannuation arrangements, the 3% scheme, in 1985-86. We built that to 5%, and then to get the compliance up, the government in 1991 introduced the superannuation guarantee charge, which takes those levels to 9% by the year 2002 for employer contributions. In One Nation, we said that we would try and introduce employee contributions along the way to advance the scheme further. In Tuesday night's budget, we announced that, the Treasurer announced that, and he also announced that the government would match the contribution by funding more than the One Nation tax cuts into employees' superannuation accounts. The consequence of that will be that the 9% that we provided under the superannuation guarantee charge will rise to 15%, a mature contribution for the whole nation. Now, Mr Speaker, what it'll mean is that somebody who is a couple, say, in their mid-30s today, or in their 30s, 30 years of age, will find that when they retire on a sum 3/4 more than the current pension. But they'll find that their children will retire on a sum twice the current pension. Let me give you the figures this way. A person on average weekly earnings who was in the scheme from maturity from over 40 years would retire, that's someone on $33,000 a year today, would retire on an annuity of $30,000 a year. And it buys what $30,000 a year buys today. Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker?
Order.
Mr. Speaker, these are not inflation. These are in the dollars of today, $1995. Now,
Member
Mr.
for
Speaker,
O'Connor.
Mr. Speaker, that annuity, Mr. Speaker, that annuity comes from a lump sum of $461,000. So, in other words, someone on $33,000 a year would bill for themselves $461,000. If we take someone, Mr. Speaker, on twice average weekly earnings, that's somebody around $60,000 today, their lump would be $750,000, and their real average retirement income per year under an annuity would be $42,000 a year. Now, Mr. Speaker, not only will we see this enormous improvement in retirement incomes, but as well as that, a massive improvement in national savings. When the government first introduced superannuation, there was only 40% of coverage for employees. I mean, the Leader of the Opposition's always run around saying people have got to save. Well, he was the Treasurer for 5 years. How come he left me as Treasurer and the government and the member for Gellibrand as Treasurer, a system which covered only 40% of employees? Mr. Speaker, under Labor, that's now covering 90% of employees. 90%. And the rise for women is even more dramatic. Than those figures, because women were previously disenfranchised from the system. They got their money and they left when they had a child, and that was the end of it. Now they can preserve it till age 55, and they can build these sorts of sums for themselves in their own name in their own right. Now, Mr. Speaker, that change is a revolutionary change to savings. That $40 billion that existed in super funds in 1983 is $186 billion today, and the Treasury is forecasting that to be $2,000 billion by the year 2020. That is, Mr. Speaker, $2 trillion, $2,000 billion, about what is now 30 times our national debt. About 30 times our national debt. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it puts into perspective the weight. Or let me put it this way, the Treasury estimate that the additional savings from Labor's superannuation policy will be 4% of GDP. Now, Mr. Speaker, everybody, I think, in the House accepts that the current account problem is of the order of 2 percentage points of GDP. It has been from the middle to late 80s onwards. There's a 4 percentage point to GDP change in superannuation alone, and a 4 percentage point to GDP change from the shift in budget policy. So there's somewhere over the next 20-odd years that sort of a change, but if we just take the change from now to the end of the century, we're probably talking about somewhere between 3 and 4% in the next 5 or 6 years, 3 to 4 percentage point change in savings to meet a 2 percentage point problem on the current account. That's why the budget met the medium-term prospects. Now, Mr. Speaker, this would only have happened, this superannuation scheme, from a Labor government. We're the only people that could build a relationship with the workforce and get them to agree to put some of their income away as savings, and then to fund the One Nation tax cuts and more into their employee superannuation accounts. So, Mr. Speaker, it's like every other great thing, whether it's floating the dollar, whether it's removing exchange controls, whether it's knocking the tariff barrier down, whether it's changing the microeconomy, or lifting or developing a comprehensive national private savings plan for Australia, it's only ever, always Labor. Only ever the Labor Party. Now, Mr. Speaker, tonight, the Leader of the Opposition has a budget reply. Tonight we can hear from the Leader of the Opposition how he would change Australia, how he would change public policy, because he's already told us, Mr. Speaker, he's already told us that he won't touch revenue. The Shadow Treasurers told us that they will not adjust revenue. So therefore the whole of his fiscal changes will be the brunt of them will be borne by cuts in government spending. He should say what he believes the order of those cuts should be. He should tell us, Mr. Speaker, how he intends to deal with the current account deficit. He should tell us. He should
Member
tell
for
us
Mayo.
how he wants to extend opportunity with education and participation in tertiary education and TAFE. Mr. Speaker,
Order.
now is the Leader of the Opposition's big moment at 7:30 tonight to tell us where he stands, or to tell us, rather, Mr. Speaker, that it's really only a cacophony of catcalls and distortions, that it's only a cacophony of exaggeration and claims, that not only is he only the same person he was in the 1980s, but he's policy tired and without policy fizz. And without policy fizz. So, Mr. Speaker,
Order.
I'm quite happy to conclude the answer by saying, let me repeat where I started. When we've all gone, Mr. Speaker, all of us gone, this change will live on. This change will live on to give Australia what it's never had ever under 23 years of coalition governments, a comprehensive private savings scheme to lift retirement incomes and to dramatically boost national savings.
The honourable member for Wills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question, without notice, is to the Treasurer. Treasurer, given that, as Professor Bob Gregory's research confirms, many long-standing ALP voting manufacturing belts continue to be excluded from the employment and economic gains your government is crowing about today, will you guarantee the redirection of the $1.2 billion savings from the Working Nation program, which is about less than a third of the money you've stolen from the people via the Commonwealth Bank, to local governments in the hardest-hit regions in Australia to create jobs in community services and capital works? Furthermore, will you also ensure that $24 million of Better Cities money is set aside to upgrade the Upfield Railway line in Melbourne's depressed north, and that the remainder of the funds are handed over to these local communities to ensure that they receive their fair share of Australia's wealth?
The Honourable Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, of course the fact is, as the Minister for Employment has already announced today, that the nation is enjoying a tremendous growth in employment. And with 90,000 in the last month, we've seen a 5% growth in employment in the last 12 months. And I think all sections of Australia are benefiting from that, including the west and northwestern parts of Melbourne, which includes the honourable member's electorate and my own. As the Speaker, those electorates are also areas which have above average levels of unemployment, and it's certainly important that we address that issue and try to do what we can within available resources to ensure that they get a proportionately high level of the funds which are available to address the unemployment issue through labour market programs in those areas. And that is what happens. And we do direct our funds both in terms of categories of people, such as long-term unemployed or youth or not English-speaking persons. We direct our funds particularly to assist groups who are most likely to find it difficult to get back into employment, and we also do it on an area basis, so that there are substantial funds, above average funds for the number of people in an area, put into the areas of highest unemployment. Now, in the northwestern region of Melbourne, in this financial year 94-5, some $118 million of labour market programs are being spent in that area, and that is proportionally a high level of expenditure, and so it ought to be. Now, that will be higher next year because there are more funds coming into labour market programs, despite the so-called cutbacks in the budget. They were cutbacks off of forward estimates, which were well up on the expenditure in 94-5. So we are looking at increased expenditure on labour market programs, in job subsidies to get people directly into jobs, and in training allowances to get to assist people to qualify for employment. Those expenditures will be higher in 95-6, considerably higher than they were in 94-5, under the Working Nation program that's been adopted by the government last year. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are very, very concerned to continue to bring about a decline in the unemployment levels, particularly of long-term unemployed people. And it's been a matter of some satisfaction the last 12 months those numbers have come down by some 80-odd thousand, or about 25%, and that's a very considerable reduction indeed in a short period of time. And with the latest addition, it's probably an even larger decline with the latest 90,000 figure announced today in increased employment. Mr Speaker, we are seeing, therefore, very much of the sort of thing that the member was talking about in terms of direction of resources to the areas of greatest need. We are not going to be doing the sort of things that he was particularly asking for. He's asking for, in a sense, for a rewriting of the budget. He knows what's in the budget, and some of the measures he's suggesting are not there. But what is there is a greatly enhanced effort on the labour market programs, building on the increases in 94.5 with further increases in 95.6 to make further inroads into unemployment, the long-term unemployment area, and also into unemployment in the areas of highest unemployment.
The honourable member for Corio.
Yes, Mr Speaker. My question's to the Treasurer as well. Can the Treasurer just elaborate on part of the Prime Minister's answer to the first question and advise the House what impact the budget will have on the government's financing task in 1995-96?
The honourable Treasurer.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm happy to do so. As the Prime Minister mentioned earlier in question time, it is the case that the Commonwealth's borrowing program will be considerably reduced this financial year in 95.6 by the fact of the budget turnaround as announced by me on Tuesday night. Now, what we've seen, of course, is a $12.9 billion turnaround from a deficit of 12.2 to a surplus of $700 million, and that turnaround means that there is accordingly much less need for the government to go to the markets to borrow. And that means that the government's financing task in association with debt repayment, maturing debt, means that instead of seeking some $21 billion that was the borrowing task this year, in 95.6 it'll be just over $6 billion. So it's a major reduction. Now, the overwhelming part of that reduction of some $15 billion comes from the turnaround in the budget as presented to this parliament. That is, from the deficit going from 12.2 to a surplus of 700, almost a $13 billion turnaround. And that, of course, demonstrates the importance of delivering the budget in the way in which it is delivered and has traditionally been delivered. With the way in which it is set out has a significance, a direct significance for the financing task of the Commonwealth. And of course that reduction in the financing task is itself very significant. And as the Prime Minister alluded to, what it means is that with a lesser amount of borrowing, we have therefore the likelihood of a higher price for government paper, which means the yields on them will be less, and therefore there is reduced pressure on interest rates because the bond rates will be less than they would otherwise have been with a higher financing task. Now, that is a very, very important factor. That's the way in which the budget, the reduction in the budget deficit and turning it into a surplus, turns into reduced pressure on interest rates. That's the way it happens. In association with the fact that the fiscal tightening in the budget reduces the inflationary pressures in the economy and therefore also bolsters the confidence of investors about inflation in the future and means that they're less likely to be looking for higher interest rates. So, Mr Speaker, the change in the government's borrowing task is of great significance, and the presentation of the budget in the way it was presented to this parliament, as it has always been, has that direct significance in terms of demonstrating the change in the financing task and the impact on the markets in terms of pressure on interest rates. So I think it's important for the House to understand that, Mr Speaker. It also means that we are looking forward to reductions in Commonwealth debt. And we're seeing that the Commonwealth net debt, which is 94.5, about 19%, 19.1% of GDP, will reduce over the forward estimates period to 13.7% of GDP. So about a 5.5% decline, 5.5% of GDP decline over that period. Now, that's what we are looking forward to, is reduced pressure on interest rates and substantial declines in government debt. Now, those, of course, are important and satisfactory outcomes for the nation. Now, Mr Speaker, it's also of interest, I think, to note that the importance that is recognised by influential people, and we had a demonstration of that this morning by the representative of Moody's, the international rating agency, who on the AM program had some comments to make about that.
Order. The Treasurer might just wait for a moment. The Leader of the National Party on a point of order.
Mr Speaker, on the 9th of May last year, just over a year ago, you issued an admonition to all ministers with regard to the length of their replies to questions and pointed out that your carriage of the control of the House required a quid pro quo from ministers with their answers. This is a comprehensive question for the member for Wills, yes, but the answer is now going on to extended length, and I invite you to ask the minister to draw his answer to a close.
You were right in as much as it was a comprehensive question asked by the member for Corio. The Treasurer has been entirely relevant in his response, and as I have also remarked previously, economic ministers in this place, as are others on the other side, given some discretion. The Honourable Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, I didn't think I'd be going that long, but let me say that I think all that I've said is very relevant to the question and very relevant to this House and to the nation. Mr Speaker, I just conclude my answer by referring to the comments made by Mr Truglia from Moody's on AM this morning. And he said, we're just interested in seeing the overall level of borrowing go down. And he went on to say, from our point of view, going to surplus is a good idea, no matter how it's achieved. So I think this is an appropriate policy to take under present circumstances. So, Mr Speaker, quite clearly, from the point of view of Moody's, the fact that we have moved into surplus, that we're reducing the borrowing requirement, the borrowing task is in fact a very important development. He was also then asked how much of a concern is that current account deficit, and he said, and I think his answer, and this is quite interesting, he said our expectation is, and it's proving true, that the government would not allow such a large current account deficit to be maintained in the medium term. Therefore, the government's making sure that fiscal policy tries to deal with it. The best way to try to deal with a current account deficit is to try and reduce the government deficit. As a result, I don't know what else you could ask the government to do to try to deal with a current account deficit the size of which no one had, as far as I know, really predicted a year or so ago. So there, Mr Speaker, I would say is a clear endorsement by Moody's of the budget, of the government's fiscal policy, of the fact that the borrowing task is being greatly reduced, and of the fact that this has considerable relevance to addressing the current account deficit.
The Honourable Member for Mallee.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is addressed to the Prime Minister. I would like to know what the Prime Minister intends to say to builders and subcontractors who are locked into fixed-price contracts for building projects with completion dates well beyond the 1st of July 1995. This is when the savage 12% sales tax on builders' hardware and certain building materials was to be imposed.
Order.
Well, I'd remind the Prime Minister and the interjectors that these are struggling medium-sized firms who do not have the cash flow, nor have they budgeted for borrowing to sustain advanced purchase of material. So what's the Prime Minister going to say to these builders and subcontractors when they discover that they have to wear these savage increases in taxes?
Order. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the increase doesn't...
Order!
Mr Speaker.
No, just wait for a moment.
Where's the tolerance now, Tim?
Order. The House will come to order and the Prime Minister will have the call. Prime Minister.
Speaker, the measures come in July, which is some time off, and Mr. Speaker, tax changes, whenever they're introduced, affect people at some particular time. Here, of course, these changes affect some materials that were formerly taxed at zero, and which are still taxed at the concessional rate. Such things as, or untaxed, such things as bolts, screws, nails, rivets, handles, knobs, bonding, setting and
Order.
sealing agents, taps, nozzles and shower heads, paints, wallpapers, etc. Those sorts of things, Mr. Speaker. Now, there are in many contracts that builders take on, rise and fall contracts covering...
Order. Those on my left will cease interjecting.
Mr. Speaker, there are price changes right across the economy all the time, this is a modest increase on a proportion of the building, Mr. Speaker. But this is from the party that wanted a 15% tax on everything, Mr. Speaker. This is from the party that wanted to put just 2 years ago 15%, not just...
Order.
Mr. Speaker, not just on nuts and bolts and handles and knobs and paints and wallpapers and bond and setting agents,
Point of
but
order.
bricks and
Order.
timber and concrete.
The Prime
and
Minister,
steel.
wait just a moment. The member for Mallee on a point
The
of
question is from me and is quite specific. It doesn't relate to something that
order.
might
No,
have
there is
happened
no
2 years
point of
ago.
order. Resume your
On
seat.
145.
Resume your seat. The Prime Minister has the
This
call.
questioner was prepared to support 15% on concrete, bricks, timber, steel, plaster and everything 2 years ago, as you all were. The guilty party over there. The guilty party.
Order.
As you all were.
Order. No.
You still want to do it?
Those on my left. The Prime Minister.
That's as they... 2
Order.
years
The
ago,
Prime Minister resume his seat. It's quite obvious that the member for Bendigo doesn't want to hear the answer. I'll give him that opportunity. I invoke the provisions of Standing Order 304A. The Prime Minister.
Two years ago, they wanted to put this across the whole of the construction sector of Australia, and not just housing, but CBD buildings and major construction as well, because the 15%, Mr. Speaker, applied to everything. But not only that, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition still wants a GST. He still wants a GST. He's been going around all this year.
Order.
And the Deputy Leader of the National Party still wants a GST.
Order.
He's been going around this year.
Prime Minister will wait just for a moment. The House will come to order.
There is going to be...
Before I call the Leader of the National Party on the point of order, I just advise those members again about unparliamentary language in this place, even though it may appear that you are disguising it by the noise.
You ever thought of looking on the other side?
Leader of the National Party.
Even though what we're saying...
There is going to be quid pro quo in this House, Mr. Speaker, by dint of our effort, and I ask you to invite the Prime Minister to come back to a relevant answer to this question and tell him the House what he is going to say to small business and stop telling lies.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the National Party will withdraw that last comment. He will withdraw that last comment. He knows it is unparliamentary.
The Prime Minister knows we're going to abolish
You will
sales
withdraw.
tax,
You will
fuel
withdraw.
excise tax, payroll tax.
You will withdraw?
I withdraw in deference to you, Mr. Speaker.
No, in deference to the House. You will withdraw.
House Speaker, I withdraw. I invite the Prime Minister
Prime
to answer
Minister,
the question.
With the exception...
Order. The member for Mallee's trying to hear the
The
answer.
Deputy Leader of the National Party, the Leader of the Opposition all year has been saying it's a shame. Yes, I know, there's going to be no GST. It's a shame. It's because this Prime Minister had a scare campaign, he said, at the last election. It's a shame it won't be in our policy. In other words, we'd like it to be in our policy. We'd like to have a GST, but it's a shame he's put it off the political agenda. Now, Mr. Speaker, mark my words.
Ruled on relevance.
John Howard wants a GST.
I have ruled on relevance. Resume your seat. The Prime Minister has
That
the
was
call.
on a previous point, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Menzies, order, and I also remind him of a ruling given in this place by the second Deputy Speaker. The member for Menzies?
Mr. Speaker, you ruled on a previous point which was raised by the member for Mallee. Since then, the Prime Minister has gone off on a tangent about GST, which is not relevant to the question of fixed-price contracts, which he was specifically asked, and what he would say to builders. It's simply not relevant.
There is no point of order. The Prime Minister was asked a question, and the Prime Minister is responding to that question. The member for Mallee is trying to hear the answer down there, I'm sure. Give him the opportunity. The Prime Minister, I invite him to wind up the answer.
I'm winding up on this point. Mr. Speaker, in 6 or 7 utterances this year, the Leader of the Opposition has said words to this effect. It's a shame we're not going to have a GST. We ought to be having one. but because the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Speaker,
Order,
here I'm being
order.
questioned about
Prime Minister's
the tax on
winding
the
up.
building industry, while the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Speaker, still has in his knapsack a GST. Now, Mr Speaker, that's why we're not hearing from him about
Order.
If he was Prime Minister of Australia, he would have a GST for this country. And
Order.
that's
The Prime Minister will
plain
resume
truth of
his
it,
seat.
Mr Speaker. He'd have a GST for this country.
I assume the Prime Minister's finished his answer. The honourable member for Coronella.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister also. Can the Prime Minister inform the House of the government's response?
Wait. You will be heard in silence. The honourable member for Coronella again.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister inform the House of the government's response to the International Year of the Family?
Lovely. Honourable Prime Minister. Order. Order. I remind all members of the provisions of Standing Order 55. The Prime Minister will be heard in silence. The Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, on budget night I released the government's agenda for families with my colleague, the Minister for Social Security and the Minister for Families. The agenda for families contains practical policies of support for families, and let me come to a number of them. One of the most important is the maternity allowance, Mr Speaker. The majority of Australian women at this time do not receive paid maternity leave. As a consequence of the budget changes in the future, Mr Speaker, they will be entitled to independent income support for 6 weeks following the birth of a child, and that's currently the equivalent of $816. So the government will be paying women who have had a child independent income support for 6 weeks, coming to the equivalent of $816. This is quite a sea change, Mr Speaker, in terms of supporting families when they need that support most, when a child has come into the family. Now, in the budget, Mr Speaker, the government's also given special attention to families most in need. We've increased rent assistance to low-income families and the guardian's allowance for sole parents. The agenda includes a range of other policies such as an increase in the number of childcare places, increased funding for child immunisation, and measures to tackle the urgent problem of youth suicide. Mr Speaker, we've also taken the opportunity in the budget to simplify our family payments, to make it easier for families to get assistance and improve support for family members caring for sick and elderly relatives. But it's important to understand that the actions in this budget...
Order. Those on my left. Yes, and it's against the
stand order. From the table.
No. The Prime Minister might just wait a minute. Order. I remind of all people, the Leader of the Opposition, of Standing Order 55, which says that when a member is responding in this place, they will be heard in silence, and he will be. Prime Minister.
The member for Mayo just said I should talk about something more interesting than families. Now, Mr Speaker...
Order. The Prime Minister has the call.
Mr Speaker...
The Prime Minister has the call.
Mr Speaker,
the Prime Minister has the call, both sides.
While the Leader of the Opposition said he's bored by the answer, he doesn't want to hear about families.
Order.
This is a supposed great
the Prime
family
Minister might come back to the
who
answer.
doesn't want to be. He wants to be bored by talking about families.
Resume your seat.
Mr Speaker, in the budget...
Order! I warn the member for Mayo.
Mr Speaker, 50 years ago your class was supporting them. Mr Speaker,
particularly bearing in mind my father fought in the Second World War, I would like the Prime Minister to withdraw that unbelievably offensive comment.
Resume your
You withdraw that, you offensive man. You withdraw
it.
That's one of the
resume your seat. Prime Minister, just resume your seat.
You should name him for that.
Just a moment.
Absolutely offensive.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Those on my right are not helping. The honourable member for Mayo has a point of order he wishes to raise.
Well, Mr Speaker, I demand that the Prime Minister withdraw that totally offensive remark that he just made. Totally offensive.
The offensive remark that it's Nazi tactics to speak about families in the parliament.
Order.
On the point of order, I of course didn't say that. The point I made was that he uses Goebbels-style propaganda, not in relation to families, but the artificial selling of artificial policies.
Order. Both sides will come to order. Both sides will come to order. Now, the honourable member for Mayo believes that the Prime Minister has made an offensive remark. I will, to help the
honourable member,
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
Just a minute.
Mr. Speaker, I made a remark about the craven Conservative cowards, the appeasers before the Second World War. Craven cowards.
Point of order.
Order. Yes. The House will come to order. The member for Flinders on a point of order.
Well, my point of order is that a point of order has been raised with you, and under the standing orders you are required to rule on that point of order, and we seek your ruling here and now.
Well, if I can be heard, I was about to ask the Prime Minister just that. The Prime Minister will assist the House if you withdraw the comment,
Speaker,
and then
I'll
come.
withdraw any reference to the member for Mayo.
Thank
because
you.
Obviously, he was
And
not born during this period.
Now, can I ask you to come to the answer?
Mr. Speaker,
Is
Mr.
withdrawn.
Speaker, let me just say about the budget and the family.
Resume your seat. The Prime Minister's withdrawn the remark,
Has
and
he
I have asked him to
unqualified
come to
withdrawal?
the answer.
You made me give an unqualified withdrawal. He's accusing us of supporting the Nazi Party. We won't have it.
Quite happy about that.
That's what it was.
Resume your seat. Resume your seat. Resume your seat. The Prime Minister was asked to withdraw. He said, "I withdraw," as I heard it. He has withdrawn the offensive remark directed at the member for Mayo, as was required. As was required, I have asked him to come to the answer. Now, it's not
On a
debatable.
point of order. Well, I am entitled to a point of order.
It is not debatable.
You can take a point of
I
order.
am allowed to take a point of order on
Not even
something
you
I've
have the
said.
power to stop me to do that. On the point of order, it was me who objected, Mr. Well, I haven't finished taking it yet. How would you know? Mr. Speaker, it was me who objected to the remark that the Prime Minister made, and it was a grossly offensive remark. He did not withdraw the remark. He qualified his withdrawal.
Resume your seat. The Prime Minister's withdrawn. The Prime Minister will come to the answer
Mr.
about
Speaker,
families.
let me get down to this part of the budget which the opposition decided to mutter at. That was the simplification of family payments to make it easier for families to get assistance and improve support for family members caring for sick and elderly relatives. Now, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to understand that the actions in this budget would not be possible without the foundation of the government's long-standing support for families, coming with the introduction of the Family Allowance Supplement and other measures since 1983. Such support as universal access to health care through Medicare, more than a five-fold increase in the number of childcare places from 46,000 to 253,000, significant real increases in family payments of over 75% for low-income families, a new parenting allowance for parents who stay at home to care for their children, which means that nearly 120,000 families will gain $59 a week, and the introduction of the childcare cash rebate to help parents meet the cost of childcare. Now, Mr. Speaker, all of those are material support for families. Medicare, the childcare places, the real increase in family payments, over 75% increase for low-income families, the new parenting allowance, the childcare cash rebate. Mr. Speaker, all concrete policies to support families. Now, Mr. Speaker, what do the opposition do? We have no idea. We have no idea. So tonight, again I say to the opposition, he can tell us in his budget reply where he stands in support of families, other than his old, well-worn one of throwing income up the top end of the income system for people on high incomes. Or he might remind us, Mr. Speaker, our support for needy families fell in real terms. It fell in real terms by more than 2% when he was Treasurer. Mr. Speaker, these are quite changes announced by the government in the budget on Tuesday night, are again another far-reaching change, another building block, the maternity allowance, the rent assistance for low-income families, the guardian's allowance for sole parents, the increases there, build on those changes which I've mentioned to you and give us really a comprehensive support system for low to middle income families.
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer. Treasurer, 18 months ago you gave an ironclad guarantee the Commonwealth Bank would not be privatised. Will you give this House now an ironclad guarantee you will not privatise Telecom or any of its constituent parts?
The Honourable Treasurer.
Just let him give it. Just let him give it.
You've asked the Deputy Leader.
Don't try and cover it up.
Deputy Leader will resume his seat and listen to the answer. The Treasurer has the call, no one else.
Mr Speaker, yesterday the Shadow Treasurer said he wouldn't ask such a question. So obviously he changes his mind too. As the Speaker, the situation in respect of the guarantee that I gave was set out in the prospectus that was issued under my name when we had the sale in October of 1993.
Order. The Treasurer will be heard.
It's been read into the Hansard of this House as to what was in the letter that I sent. What was not mentioned, what was also in the prospectus, and I'd just like to refer the House to what was actually in the prospectus. Now, let me say firstly that what was said by me in respect of that letter that was sent to potential investors was that we had no intention to sell down any further our share of the Commonwealth Bank. And that was our position at that time. It was a 100% true statement. It was an absolutely correct statement. Well, if there had been some plan, if there had been some plan...
The Deputy Leader of the Opposition is trying to hear the answer. The member for Flinders on a point of order.
Well, he was not asked. My point of order is on the question of relevance. He was not asked about the Commonwealth Bank. The government's policy position on that is clear. We're asking him today whether or not he'll give a 100% ironclad, it's definitely true today, that they won't sell Telecom.
No, there's no point of order because, in fact, the Treasurer, the question that went to the Treasurer, while relevant to the issue of Telecom, also made reference to Commonwealth Bank. The Treasurer is in order. He is answering the question. The Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, as I was saying, the statement that I made then was 100% correct. Now, if there had been some decision taken by the government at that time to, in fact, do something else, and I had made that statement, then obviously that would have been misleading potential investors. It would have been an incorrect statement. But that was not the position. We had no intention at that time. The policy was quite clear. And the statement that I made was 100% correct. Now, Mr Speaker, what was also said in the prospectus is this, and it's on page 23 under a heading Relationship of the Commonwealth Bank with the Commonwealth of Australia. And it talks about the 50.1% ownership by the Commonwealth, and then it says, it is also possible for the government to initiate amendments to legislation which, if enacted by the Australian Parliament...
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
The Treasurer resume his seat.
It's Understanding Order 145. I heard your ruling on the last occasion, but you can hardly expect... when the Treasurer is actually reading out of the prospectus of the Commonwealth Bank. And the question was addressed to the issue of Telecom.
I've already
for us to address anything else but say that the answer is not relevant.
The member for Isaacs will resume his seat for a moment. I have already ruled that the Treasurer is in order in referring to that. I have also said to people in this place that taking spurious points of order, for whatever reason, is also highly disorderly. I give a general warning to people now. The Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, if I can just reread that section on page 23 of the prospectus. And it said, it is also possible for the government to initiate amendments to legislation which, if enacted by the Australian Parliament, could reduce its role or increase it. So that warning was there in the prospectus. It was there in the prospectus as something. Now, we had no intention. I went on to It went on to reiterate the point about having no intention, and later on repeated what is in the letter about having no intention to sell down any further. But the possibility of change in the future was clearly there in the prospectus. So, Mr. Speaker, there is, I think, a clarification needed in terms of what was put to potential investors. What was said was 100% correct, and in the prospectus there was the clear warning that things could possibly change in the future. Now, Mr. Speaker, in relation to the issue of telecom, it's the other part of the question. The government's never sold any part of telecom. It has no intention of doing that. It has no intention of doing that. It has a party platform. There's a party platform which prohibits it from doing that, and it's no way the policy of the government to sell telecom.
Order. Those on my left. Member for Capricorning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment, Education and Training. It concerns commitments made at various times by the Prime Minister and yourself to boost higher education opportunities in Queensland. Can the Minister inform the House what measures were included in the budget to meet those commitments?
Order. Order. The Leader of the Opposition and the Prime Minister, if you'd like to just conduct the debate later. The Honourable Minister for Employment, Education and Training.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question because she, together with the member for Moreton and indeed all Queensland members, have been actively lobbying the government to ensure that Queensland gets its fair share of university places. I might say that the budget, Mr. Speaker, was very good news for the higher education sector. And what this budget has done is build on the commitment of this government now over the past 12 years to significantly expand the higher education sector. In fact, in that time prior to this budget, Mr. Speaker, commitments that this government have made have seen university places increase by 70%. This is a massive injection of commitment to ensuring the quality in the higher education sector and giving our young people real opportunity to get into universities. But this budget continues to build on that investment. The budget committed to the next 3 years 5,850 new university places, the great bulk of those going to Queensland. In fact, 4,200 of them, Mr. Speaker, go to Queensland on top of the 500 that we gave at the end of last year. Now, I was asked the question on a previous occasion in this House as to whether we could guarantee the continuation of the 500 places, Mr. Speaker. Not only are we guaranteeing that, we've multiplied it in a huge way to ensure that Queensland gets its fair share. But Queensland's not the only beneficiary, because other members in the House that live in growth areas in New South Wales and Western Australia also have the same problem. And the budget makes an allocation of places to those states as well to pick up on the growth places. All of these places have been delivered, Mr. Speaker, without taking any away from the other states. Now, there was indignation across the other side of the House. The South Australians came in, the Victorians came in and said, if you're doing it for Queensland, don't take it off us. Well, the reality is, Mr. Speaker, we've delivered the places without taking any existing places away. And this, I should suggest to the House, is a very significant commitment. But it's not only university places that we're funding, because we recognise that if we're going to put more people into universities, they have to have the facilities to be taught in and to be housed. And so there's also money for infrastructure to support these places. But we go further, because we've recognised the need to build the research base further within the universities. And research infrastructure funding goes up 57% over the next 3 years out of this budget, and we've also increased the number of research places. We've done this, Mr. Speaker, without any cuts to the higher education sector, with no upfront fees for undergraduate students and no increase in the HECS debt. It's another example of, while we're doing it, what does the opposition say? I'll be very interested tonight to see if the Leader of the Opposition actually tells us what his commitment is to the higher education sector. He's telling us that we've got to cut spending. Are they going to cut it in the higher education sector? Let's hear the policy from the other side. The return to vouchers, the return to fees, the smashing of student unions. That's your policy in higher education. That's your policy. Well, let's hear what your policy is if you say it is a lie. The simple fact of the matter is, Mr Speaker, this government has delivered significantly again to the higher education sector. And little wonder that the AVCC, the National Teachers Tertiary Education Industry Union, the National Union of Students and the postgraduate, all of them, the academics, the Vice-Chancellors, the National Unions of Students have all applauded this budget. They won't be applauding you in terms of your hollow rhetoric of support for higher education, but by the only way you would do it would be charging students fees to get it.
The honourable member for Ryan.
Mr Speaker, my question is addressed to the Prime Minister, and I refer to his interview last night on the 7:30 report, in which he made a number of observations, including this. The Commonwealth Bank is going to buy back into Treasury the shares. And do you know what's going to happen? You have less shares. And do you know what happens when you have less shares? The price goes up. Well, Mr Prime Minister, after the little tip on the share market, can I ask you this question? Can the Prime Minister explain to the House whether this offer to buy back the Commonwealth Bank shares applies equally to all shareholders or only to the government's holding? If it's the latter, is the Prime Minister prepared to indemnify the bank directors against legal action from wrong shareholders?
The Honourable the Prime Minister.
You know, Mr Speaker, echoes from the Brisbane Stock Exchange. Echoes from the Brisbane Stock Exchange. Mr Speaker.
Order. The Prime Minister has the call.
I know what some of those echoes are. Mr Speaker, all this stuff about little stock market tips and the rest. Let me just say this, Mr Speaker. We had yesterday this completely beat up issue. This completely beat up issue on the part of the opposition as a diversion from the real debate, which they are unable to handle, about the question of whether the Commonwealth government wouldn't be able to sell its shares without all of the stockholders in the Commonwealth Bank agreeing. It was a complete furphy. A completely and utterly untrue, a complete ruse, a sham, a diversion, completely and utterly irrelevant. Now, Mr Speaker, but they did their best on that for about 10 or 12 hours, and there was always either the gullible or the partisan who took up their cause. No. Well, on this occasion he was a little gullible, and I asked him whether he got it down at Aussie's Cafe, and he probably did. He probably did. He probably had got it from one of you lot down there. Now, Mr Speaker, but it didn't do him any good, and it didn't do you any good. Now, Mr Speaker, the other thing is this. But, Mr Speaker, the government will need the shareholder support when a proposal is put to them to buy back. No, for the buyback proposal, not the selling, the buyback. But the buyback is not at all central. Central to the disposal of the bank by the government. It's just a modality in the sale. A modality. Now, maybe it's a few years ago since anyone used the word modality. Get the dictionary out and find out what it means. I know these days over there with a diminishing vocabulary, you'll wonder what it means. But Mr Speaker. And of course, it'll be open for all shareholders. There's a little tip from the Stock Exchange. All shareholders to make a judgment about the Commonwealth's offer. But of course, any offer we would make would come after a scoping study conducted by my colleague, the Minister for Finance, and his department. And therefore, to arrive at any price at which the bank may offer to buy back shares into Treasury and cancel them. Mr Speaker, that would mean that that would be the subject of a scoping study. And therefore, Mr Speaker, all the shareholders will have their full say. No, the full shareholders will have their full say. Now, Mr Speaker, but the key point is, Mr Speaker, the government will be putting the bank in 2 tranches onto the market at a time which suits that floating of that stock. I hope members of the press gallery have taken note of the fact that that little ruse, that scam they had running yesterday in the opposition about the Commonwealth Bank was completely without foundation. Now, I know most of the wise ones know not to believe a word you say. They'll be doubly careful after yesterday's little number.
The honourable member for Lowe.
Mr Speaker, my question without notice is directed to the Minister for Transport and Industrial Relations. Minister, may I preface this question by acknowledging the recent announcements regarding accelerated and expanded development at Sydney West Airport with pleasure. My question, Minister, is, are you aware of the many current concerns about the effects of aircraft noise from Kingsford Smith Airport and the lack of community consultation mechanism? What do you intend to do to address the need for more community consultation on issues such as aircraft that stray from official flight paths, monitoring of noise level in affected suburbs, as well as health and safety issues arising from aircraft movements?
The Honourable Minister for Transport.
Yeah. I'll deal with it as briefly as I can, Mr Speaker, but I should draw the House's attention to the announcement on December 8th last year of a comprehensive package of measures to address the severe impact of aircraft noise on the communities surrounding Kingsford Smith Airport. As the House will recall, Mr Speaker, that package included restricted flight paths, heavy penalties for breaches of these flight paths, a comprehensive noise insulation program which will now cost $260 million, and a requirement to minimise northerly takeoffs and the impact of those takeoffs. I can now report, Mr Speaker, that all of these noise abatement measures are in place or in the process of being implemented. The government on that occasion also foreshadowed the establishment of a broadly based Community Consultative Committee, a committee which would provide the opportunity for noise-affected residents to monitor the airport's operations, as well as the progress with the noise abatement measures. In line with that commitment, Mr Speaker, today I can inform the House and the honourable member that the former Sydney Airport Environment Committee will be totally reconstituted to provide wide community representation. The changes will address community concerns about the deficiencies of the old committee and have been formulated after consultation with many of the concerned groups. On the basis of the community input, the new consultative committee will include an independent chairman, 7 community representatives nominated by federal MPs in electorates affected by the airport operations, 9 community representatives nominated by state MPs from similarly affected electorates, 14 local government council representatives, the Civil Aviation Authority, the Federal Airports Corporation, the Commonwealth Department of Transport, the New South Wales Department of Planning, the New South Wales Environmental Protection Agency, and 3 aviation industry representatives. Mr Speaker, it's proposed that the new committee will look at airport matters, including reports on the noise and health impacts of the airport's operations, the radar tracks of each day's flights to and from the airport, possible breaches of the flight path corridors, the adequacy of the flight path and noise monitoring arrangements, the enforcement of the airport curfew and progress with the insulation and acquisition program. The committee will also afford community representatives the opportunity to question relevant authorities about all of the operations of the airport. In view of the number of affected groups and interested parties, the committee is necessarily large and broadly based. For this reason, it's proposed that a smaller 13-person group, appointed by the larger committee, will meet regularly to receive and distribute reports on all aspects of the airport's operations. The process will be supported by a secretariat within the Commonwealth Department of Transport. The new committee will be required to publish an annual report on its operations for tabling here in the Parliament. Having established the framework, Mr Speaker, it's now our intention to have the new committee up and running as soon as possible. In this regard, I am today pleased to advise the House that the Honourable Joe Reardon, the newly appointed Chairman of WorkSafe Australia, has generously accepted the government's invitation to serve as Chairman of the Sydney Airport Consultative Committee. And I say as Chairman, Mr Reardon will bring to this position his long history of distinguished service in Australian public life, both as a federal government minister as well as a very distinguished Senior Deputy President of the Australian Industrial Relations Commission. Mr Speaker, can I conclude by saying that the new consultative committee will afford those communities bearing the burden of aircraft noise the opportunity to closely monitor the airport's operations and a regular opportunity to question those responsible for the operations. I know all members representing the surrounding electorates, especially the member for Lowe, who has persistently called for the establishment of such a broadly based committee, will welcome its establishment.
The Honourable Leader of the National Party.
Mr Speaker, my question without notice is directed to the Treasurer. Given that the ABS has found the rich have got richer and the poor have become poorer under the federal Labor government, and that sales tax increases on the price of family homes and the family car without any compensation are aggressive, has the Treasurer conducted a distributional analysis of the taxation changes detailed in the 1995 budget? Well, you have. You have you?
Order.
Good, thanks.
Order.
Mr Speaker, I ask, was this analysis conducted through the Prismod computer package held by the Treasury? If so, will this critical information be released to the Parliament and the Australian community? And if not, why not, as the Prime Minister has now confirmed an analysis has been discussed?
The Honourable the Treasurer.
This is the great taxer over here.
Mr Speaker, such questions come interestingly from the opposition whose Such questions come interestingly from the opposition, whose policy, presumably, if it gets elaborated by the Leader of the Opposition tonight, is to make major cuts into the budget by way of expenditure reductions rather than by— wrong, they're not going to cut expenditure? Oh, well, we'd be interested to hear the outcome. That means you just simply don't have a policy at all then, apparently.
Order, order. No previews. Come on, order. Treasurer.
And at the last election, we're quite happy to have a 15% goods and services tax on all goods and services.
Order.
Mr Speaker, this great concern about the distribution of income is a latter-day discovery from a group who've never shown any great interest in looking after the lower-income people in our community. And Mr Speaker, what this budget does in respect of low-income earners is to give them the greatest boost to retirement incomes that has ever been contemplated in the history of this country. And they have, Mr Speaker, in terms of this budget, received an enormous boost to their retirement incomes through the superannuation changes which have been talked about in detail by the Prime Minister earlier today. And they demonstrate, of course, by channeling the second round of the One Nation tax cuts into superannuation funds in a way which, through matching contributions by the government, in a way which is means-tested and capped, so as to give maximum benefit to people on lower incomes, that the equity—
The Treasurer might resume
point of order.
his seat.
Standing order
Member for Menzies on point of order.
Mr Speaker, this was a specific question which was seeking information of the Minister about a number of specific things, whether or not a distributional analysis has been conducted. Was it conducted through the Prismod computer package held by the Treasury? And if so, will this crucial information be released to the Parliament? Now, nothing could be more specific than that, Mr Speaker, and the Treasurer has made no attempt to answer these questions seeking information from him.
You made your point of order. The Leader of the House took the point of order.
I think it seems to be a misunderstanding on the part of the opposition that when you pose a question which has a preamble, in which you do things as in that question, discuss things such as the difference between rich and poor and include preambular material in it, as previously was the case in a question that was put up asking the Treasurer with regard to telecom, preambled by an extensive preamble on the Commonwealth Bank, that you create a broad panoply of relevance, and that's exactly what the questioner did.
Order. I find that in both contributions on the question of this particular matter quite appropriate. I think the honourable member does raise some issues that the Treasurer might address, but so too does the Leader of the House, in that he does indicate that when there is a broad preamble, it does invite the Minister to respond, and I know that the Treasurer will be. The Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, the importance of the point I was making is that it obviously does mean a very substantial improvement in the retirement incomes of lower income people, and that improvement is spelled out in detail in this paper, Savings for Our Future. And I recommend that members opposite have a good look at what is spelled out there and see the tremendous increase in retirement incomes coming for ordinary wage earners in this country through the redirection of the second leg of the One Nation tax cuts into superannuation funds in a way which improves the equity of the superannuation system and obviously improves the equity of income distribution in this country. Now, Mr Speaker, we have not done a model which puts all that in together with this budget measures in respect of everything else. But certainly we can see, in respect of that retirement incomes measure, tremendous improvement in equity. Now, in respect of the other measures, of course, there are things which improve very much the position of people on lower incomes, and some of the welfare changes, and as well as some of the tax increases which have been referred to in the question. So there are measures that go both ways, but we haven't done a Prismod analysis of that. What we have done is a major analysis of what it means in